Stearns, Benton, Sherburne, Todd, and Morrison County.
And my name is Dan Troutman. I'm a St. Cloud police officer, also assigned to the task force. I've been with St. Cloud for 8 years or so, and 5.5 in the task force. So we're going to do our best to breeze through this. I know you guys are probably wanting to hit the road. We've been in your position too. So we're going to breeze through this. If you guys have any questions, save them to the end. If you don't want to ask in front of everybody, we'll be out here for a little bit afterwards as well. So they basically want us to come in and kind of give you guys a little presentation about gang and drug information. So in the course of your guys' duties, if you're in and out residences, apartments, if you see certain things that you're not sure what they are, maybe after seeing some of these slides, you might be able to pick up on some of those things. As Dan said, we're the red region here right in this central Minnesota area. So let's just jump right into it. As far as gang activity goes, need to kind of make the distinction here. I know probably most of you guys are from smaller municipalities. So the things you're going to be seeing are different than what you're going to be seeing in St. Paul or Minneapolis. When you go down to those regions, the gangs are far more different than you're going to see in the smaller towns. Minneapolis, St. Paul, you're going to see certain things, graffiti on street corners, gang members that are wearing certain colors. They have their certain territories, different neighborhoods that they're going to claim. A little bit more dangerous for people going into those areas if they don't know where they're at or if they happen to go in the wrong neighborhood. St. Cloud, some of the other smaller cities, kind of what you'll see as far as gang activity goes, it's far less outward and obvious. They don't really like to advertise themselves as being gang members. It attracts attention to them, so it's a lot harder for you and I to determine who's involved in gangs. And again, too, going into residences, far less likely to see any graffiti on the walls, anything kind of identifying themselves as being involved in gangs. As far as certain gangs that we run into here in the St. Cloud area, we have our Chicago-based gangs, gangs that originate in Chicago and they make their way to St. Cloud, Mankato, Rochester, Duluth, some of those cities those size. They come here for whatever reason. Family lives here just to get away from Chicago. Hispanic gangs, motorcycle gangs, white supremacists, and other locally formed gangs as well. So we're going to run through a couple different things here. Tattoos, graffiti, and different writings. Those are kind of ways that we can identify people who are involved in different gangs. This gentleman here openly posts this on Facebook. If you can look on his shoulders there, he's got 1-3. That corresponds to the letter M, which would be a Mexican type of gang. Use hand signs as well, 1 and 3. Probably not likely that you're going to walk into a house and there's going to be somebody like that. Hope not. Same with this gentleman here too. These are the type of guys that you're going to run into in the far much larger cities, Los Angeles, Texas, down, not in St. Cloud. I mean, these guys are probably in prison for life, so they don't care if they've got tattoos like that openly displayed.
Hopefully your daughter's not bringing them home for Christmas.
Pretty sure I'm not turning water on.
This gentleman here, this was actually somebody in St. Cloud that one of our officers ran into. Same gang, the Mara Salvatrucha 13, but less obvious. He's got a tattoo on the back of his head. Don't normally see that unless you're paying attention. So yeah, other tattoos here. Vice Lords, this is a Chicago-based gang. Another one, Black Peace Stones, they're a Chicago-based gang as well, gentlemen in St. Cloud. Another thing these guys like to do is make writings, whether it be on paper or on buildings or whatnot. And this was actually taken from a high school student in St. Cloud. So there's certain little things that they'll do. They'll kind of identify what gang they're in, and they'll also make little references to other gangs that they're against as well. Like in the top right corner, F, the vice lords. So that's common for gang members to do. Latin Kings would be a Hispanic gang. This is kind of what those larger city gangs will do to mark their territories. We don't really see it in St. Cloud. I wouldn't expect to see it in a city smaller than St. Cloud as well. And this would be a common thing to do for rivals of a gang. If they run into somebody's graffiti, they're going to cross it out as a sign of disrespect. As I mentioned, 2 Chicago street gangs, they made their way to Minnesota. If you look, we just got a number of different types of graffiti that they will identify themselves with. Pitchforks, for whatever reason, stars, and other little symbols as well. So, kind of breeze through that, I know. But basically, you're probably not going to run into anything obvious like that inside of a house. For me, I think I've only been in one house in my course of duties where it's obvious that they've got stuff posted on the walls identifying themselves with a certain gang. But just good to know in case you guys see something like that. What you're more likely to run into is probably drug stuff. So we've got a lot more stuff on that as well.
We do get, afterwards, if you guys want to come up, we actually have real dope up here. If you guys want to come up and look at it, we need to be accountable for it, so don't steal it. And we both are armed. So, but like I said, if you guys want to come up here and look at it, feel free to come up here after we're done. You can look through it just for reference point. Methamphetamine, we still have a lot of methamphetamine in our area. We'll talk about what we see in central Minnesota here. This is the new stuff that we see. It's called ice or glass. Back in the day when we used to have a lot of it manufactured around here, we didn't see a lot of this. This is kind of the new up-and-coming stuff. A lot of the methamphetamine we're seeing right now comes straight up from Mexico. We're seeing about 90 to 95% pure. Back in the day, back 8-9 years ago, we were maybe seeing 17 to 20% pure. A lot of the stuff we'll see is 90 to 95% pure right now. So it's very, very pure. Here are some smoking devices that they use. The light bulbs are very common. We've had a lot of apartments where they report missing light bulbs all the time. That's what they use them for. They hollow them out and they smoke meth out of them. That's a pretty good representation of what meth looks like. It looks like broken glass almost. And like I said, it's very pure, and we're seeing a lot of larger weights right now. As you guys are probably well aware, the border is not secure on the southern end, and we're seeing a lot of methamphetamine right now from Mexico coming up.
Obviously, we've got a straight shot on the Interstate 35 straight up to our area, pretty close to Chicago too. If it doesn't go straight up here, it'll divert to Chicago and make its way back up here.
Just some packaging of meth that we recovered on search warrants. Obviously, something like that, if you guys are in a house and you see this, we just had a call yesterday where an apartment manager went in to fix a water pipe, I believe, and walked in and there was 3 pounds of marijuana sitting on the bed. And so he left because he panicked, and when he came back out, the guy was running out the door with a bag. So, more methamphetamine, those are individual ounce packages. I think the ones on the right are a couple of 3 ounces. An ounce of meth is roughly $2,000, $1,500 to $2,000.
This would be what you would probably call a drug kit that a lot of these users have. It's got everything they need to use. They got their pipes, packaging materials, scales if they want to double check how much they get. Extra baggies too if they're going to sell as well. We run into these all the time. And these little postage stamp sized bags, as many people want to say that they keep coins or things like that in there, have yet to see it. So that's
It's
what they use for.
Kind of like the scale you had on the previous slide. A lot of the people that we go in there, they say they have these scales to weigh their postage, so they know if they got to put a second stamp on their book, you know.
Or in the kitchen.
Yeah. This is the powdered or fluff methamphetamine. One thing that you guys are going to run into probably is the new trend is these one-pot methods, it's called. They can make it in a 2-liter or in a 20-ounce bottle of pop, but they put the chemicals in there, shake it up, they burp it, and they make this here stuff. It's the powdered fluff. It's kind of the mom and pop stuff. If you see a bottle that's separated, the liquids are separated, I would be very, very careful with that, because if you mix that back up, it could cause a reaction and cause it to explode. So if you're anywhere and you see pop bottles, 2-liter bottles, that type of thing, and there's separated liquid in there, be extremely careful handling that. In my opinion, I would call somebody and have somebody come and look at it, because it will blow up and explode all over your face. Couple hours. The question was, how long does it take them to make the one-pot method of meth? I don't know for sure. Neither one of us are meth lab guys, but I think it's just a couple hours, and they'll have several bottles in their in their car, and they'll just throw them out on the road just to get rid of the evidence once they take their dope out of it. So, like I said, we see them people doing the adopt a highway stuff, cleaning ditches and stuff like that. And you got kids out there, whatever, doing it. Just be very careful. If you see separated, you'll have a sludge, you'll have different liquids, different layers. Just be very careful with that stuff. All books that we've recovered doing search warrants that to teach you how to make meth. If you go online and you Google it, you'll find 500 videos on how to make methamphetamine. I don't recommend it. Do it on the city computer, because a lot of them are infected by viruses. So do it on the city computer so you don't get your home computer wrecked.
Before they tightened the restrictions on Sudafed, this is what you would expect to see in a house that they have a meth lab in. Since they've tightened those restrictions, it's rare, I would say, that we run into these meth labs anymore. They would go buy packs and packs at a single store, and you'd have your blister packs laying around from when they empty those things out. They still do it now, but they'll go pick up one box at Walgreens, they'll go to Walmart, pick up another one, and they'll just kind of go what they call smurfing. They just go from store to store until they get enough. Just have a few slides here too on other things that you would expect to see in a meth lab. Propane tanks they use for their anhydrous. A lot of times they'll go on a farm site, any place where they got big tanks, and steal from there.
You ever see what that does to a dollar bill? It's anhydrous ammonia.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
wow.
Just peels it or what?
No, takes the moisture out of it. That's an actual dollar bill.
You have to hold it up for everybody to see the Oh, wow.
I think we're gonna confiscate this. Thank you.
Well, that's exactly, I mean, the question was, why don't we let them use it and die? Unfortunately, a lot of times when we deal with meth labs and stuff like that, you got kids there, you got other people there, it's the residual effects. If we find this right now, the latest thing, we have a company out of Chicago, Illinois that has to come and pick up our hazardous waste. Costs us, I think, $2,000 to get rid of this. If this is on your property, we find it, or they find it on your property, you are now responsible for that cost. And with apartments and stuff like that, it's something, the DEA always had funding that they paid us, or that pay us, but they would come and collect it for free. That funding has now ran out, so it has become the city's responsibility to cover that cost. Like I said, it's like $2,000. They got to come from Chicago to pick it up. So it's, trust me, Darwinism, they do their own thing enough, but unfortunately there's a lot of other people that are involved that get drug into this.
Yeah, you'd be surprised when we do search warrants on these meth houses, how many kids are actually present when it's going on. And they can't do anything about it. I mean, they need us to hopefully help them and get them out of that situation. So that's kind of our main concern.
That was taken out of the Mississippi River just north of Sartell. Somebody had called and said that there was a suspicious item in there. That's what they found. It was a meth lab that was discarded into the river.
And because all those chemicals together are so hazardous, this is basically how you have to suit up to clean those things up. Moving on, cocaine, still very popular here in St. Cloud. Most of it would come from the metro areas, Minneapolis via Chicago or further down south. These, what you see here would be the common means of storing cocaine. Again, they're little collector coin baggies, postage stamp baggies. A lot of those laying around in drug houses. Here I think we have a couple, 2-3 ounces of crack cocaine. Sorry, a regular cocaine. As you see, it's kind of chunky. I think it's just the way it's packaged when it comes up from south of the border in the bricks. So when they break it up, it ends up looking like that. Crack cocaine, very popular here in St. Cloud for whatever reason. I know Duluth has a similar problem as well. And it kind of spans out to the smaller communities around there as well. One of the main reasons why whether we have so many people up here in St. Cloud selling crack, if you go down to Minneapolis and you spend $100 on an amount of crack, which would be 2 to 3 grams, you can come up to St. Cloud and you can sell that for $300 to $400. And as you get farther away from the metro area, that amount just gets greater too. So profit potential for these guys that are selling this stuff is huge, which is kind of why we have such a problem.
Go back one there. Do you see on the top left picture there's a bag of rocks? Each individual rock is bagged in a separate baggie. And what they do is, I don't know if you guys, when you clean your traps out and stuff, you ever notice baggies where the corners are missing? You ever seen that? That's very common for us on search warrants and stuff like that. And they flush them a lot of times. What they do is they put that rock of crack in the corner of the baggie. They tie it super tight. I don't know how they get it that tight, but they tie it super tight. They rip that corner off. They do it in both corners, and they get rid of the baggie. And it's called a corner tear. So a lot of times we'll have people call that say, I'm finding all these baggies and all the corners are missing out of them. That's what they're doing is they're putting their crack in there and ripping them off, and that's where how they're storing it.
This would be just a little close-up appearance of how crack differs from powder cocaine. Marijuana, it's been around. It's always going to be around. Probably most commonly what you're going to run into or you're going to see paraphernalia, certain things like that. And yeah, somebody who's involved in selling marijuana, this is a common thing here, prepackaged amounts of marijuana for sale, scale to weigh them out, proceeds, they like to use those little safes there that aren't really safe, so they can be broken pretty darn easily. And here is all the stuff that they like to have laying around. Just little glass pipes, bongs, whatever that they use to smoke out of.
How many people have you heard say, oh, the cops took my tobacco pipe? You know, who can tell me that their grandpa sat around and smoked tobacco out of one of these pipes? I mean, come on. A lot of these pipes are $200, $100 to $200 at the shops. They're very, very expensive, so it's very fun to take them from.
We've even seen tears when you've taken some of the big ones.
This was a controlled delivery of marijuana. We received information from the Postal Service that this guy was receiving large amounts. We flagged his residence. They flagged a package for us. We had a canine hit on it. Then what we did is we had a guy deliver it to this residence, an apartment. When we came into the apartment, he said he didn't know what was in the package, but that was sitting on his counter and it was cut open. So he knew what was in there.
Same type of deal here. This is how they package it and ship it up from south of the border as well. Another thing you guys might run into, this is not very common, but it still happens, is indoor marijuana grows. People who do this will use normal residences, even very nice looking ones. They'll purchase them and they'll use them solely for growing marijuana. That house as well looks pretty normal, doesn't it? You go inside and that's all it is. So yeah, they completely convert it. They make their own rooms, putting up plastic tarping to kind of create a little humidity and moisture in the residences. Big filters to blow air through these rooms and keep them aerated.
One of the big news studies now too is if you guys are ever in that situation, they say the mold, because they have it so humid for watering and stuff like that, the mold is extremely dangerous. They're recommending us now to wear full suits and masks when we go in to deal with these things because of the amount of mold inside the residence.
And again, this could be a normal bedroom. They just make it their own. This would be kind of a starter plant little room where they get the buds going, which eventually turns into that. So yeah, quite common. People might use a whole basement in a residence. They'll have these things set up. Again, they'll have one room will be smaller plants, and as they grow in maturity, they'll move them from room to room. Magic mushrooms, another thing that people like to grow on their own. Different means to grow it that they might use in their closet or something like that. This is actually somebody that was growing mushrooms last year, I think, in St. Cloud. They start off with the little mason jars with their growing medium in there. They inject the mushroom spores into them. And eventually they move them into their Tupperware container where they can control the humidity, and eventually they come up with those things sprouting out.
You guys, what would your estimation, up until last, or 2 years ago, what was the #1 leading cause of death between male or adults 21 to 35 years old?
Heroin.
Car accidents. Forever, since cars have became popular, that was the #1 cause of leading cause of death in that age group. For the first time in the last 2 years, we've changed that now. It's opiate overdose. Is that prevalent right now? We, for years, when I started 7 years ago, we kept hearing from the metro that there was heroin around. We didn't believe them, Not that I shouldn't say we didn't believe them, but we just didn't see it. I mean, very rarely.
And at that time, I think what we were seeing were the opiate-based narcotics, your hydrocodone, Vicodin, things like that. Heroin is also opiate-based as well. So a lot of times people start out with the pain pills, they'll get addicted, they can't afford them anymore, and then they turn to this, and then it's all downhill from there.
With heroin, there's a new law in the legislature right now where they're trying to get us equipped with Narcan. Narcan's a ingredient, if we can get it into somebody when they overdose, we can usually bring them back where they'll be talking by the time they leave to go to the hospital. They'll be dead. We'll get there, we can inject them with this Narcan, and they'll be walking by the time we leave to go to the hospital. Then they're pissed off because we took their high from them. But realistically, we probably had, what would you say that in the last 2 years, 50 opiate overdoses in the St. Cloud metro area, where people are dead and they either get brought back or they die. So it is a huge problem for us. And like Dan said, the oxycodones and stuff like that, everybody used to get high off the oxys. Oxy changed, the company Purdue Pharma that makes oxys changed their formula, so now that if you take extra oxys, you're not going to get high from them. And that helped us greatly in that aspect. But now these people that are opiate opiate addicts, they need to get high. I mean, they have that tolerance. So what they're switching to is they're switching to heroin. And I think the national average for heroin is percentage-wise, I think the national average is that 30 to 40, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. But the heroin we're seeing up in the St. Cloud metro area in Minnesota is testing in the 80s to 90s. So what's happening is these people are taking their dose that they think is 30% or 40%, but they're actually hitting 80 or 90% and they're dying right there because it's just too much for them.
Primary means for using heroin would be through needles. If you're in a house where somebody's a big heroin junkie, there's going to be needles everywhere. Garbage will be full of them. They're probably sitting around. Some of them still loaded up. They just forget about. So kind of nerve-wracking for us too when we're searching a place like that. And we got to look before we're grabbing anywhere so we don't get stuck. As far as packaging heroin, they like to use what they call a balloon, and it basically is that they wrap up the amounts in little balloons. Also, they'll use the little corners of sandwich bags like they do for crack as well. Those things laying around everywhere too. Common things for heroin users too, they got their little kits with their spoons that they melt it down with, needles to inject with, and even like to clean up once in a while too with some alcohol wipes. Ecstasy, not super common, but you'll see it around the college towns, St. Cloud, Mankato as well. Might mistake them as being vitamins, but when you see them in a little plastic bag like that, that might be your indicator that it's something else. Molly would be another common term that kids are throwing out now. If you ever hear that word being thrown out, probably not referring to a female named Molly, but more than likely ecstasy. Another drug that we run into is what's called Khat. Khat is something that is common in East African culture. It's something that they ship over from Somalia and those areas there, and they do it within a couple of days. The reason why they do that, the main ingredient that gives you their high deteriorates after a couple of days of them harvesting this stuff. So they use the UPS, FedEx, things like that to get these things over there.
They grow that here?
No, I guess the environment here isn't conducive to that at all. So yeah, they basically East Africa is where it's grown and ship it right over. So that's basically what we got. So if you guys are in and out of houses, apartments, and you see certain things that we showed up there, I wouldn't mention it while you're there. If you feel so inclined, you can give your local law enforcement a call after you leave. You can remain anonymous. I know people don't want to, certain people don't want to get involved, don't want to leave their names. If you don't care, sure, leave your name. A lot of times we might already know about these places, and just one extra little thing might help us get in there and taking care of them. So,
Does anybody have questions?
Can you pass those around?
No. We probably got about $8,000 to $10,000 worth of dope up here, so I'm not, and I don't want to get fired. So, question, Becca?
What are your guys' thoughts on medical marijuana?
Oh, you're gonna get me started. The question was, what is my opinion on medical marijuana? Pardon my French, I think it's bullshit. And the reason I'll explain why. Okay, there are these kids that are having seizures, and we've all seen it in the news recently, where there's 300 seizures, and when they take medical marijuana, they're having 7 seizures, or 5 seizures a day. Okay, so these 5-year-old and 7-year-old kids are not taking medical marijuana. They are taking a liquid form of a cannabinoid that is affecting, or that is taking care of the seizures. Okay, so is it marijuana? Yeah, technically it is marijuana. The marijuana we're seeing on the street right now is somewhere between 17 and 20% THC level. The marijuana that they're giving these kids, it's called Charlotte's Web, is less than 1% THC. And it's very, very high in another cannabinoid that's called CBD. CBD is if CBD is in regular marijuana, you don't get high from it because it combats the effects of THC. Okay, so the dopers that we're dealing with on the street that are smoking marijuana have very high THC, very low CBDs. The drugs that these kids are taking to reduce their seizures are very high CBDs, very low THC. If a kid, and I'm not callous to the thing, if that helps a kid, I'm all for it. Okay, if that is the last thing that they say. I saw the news the other day, there was a guy, I think he was a St. Minneapolis City Council member that's saying that he's got glaucoma and the THC is the only thing that's saving him. The Glaucoma Society says, no, it's BS. They don't even recommend it. There was an article in the paper today that the doctors are saying, 3 out of 5 doctors say no, and the other 2 are not, they don't have a comment. Out in Colorado when they had medical marijuana, 2% of all the doctors in Colorado prescribe 95% of all the prescriptions. Doesn't that tell you something? And I'm not, like I said, I do by no means, if there's a little kid that this cannabinoid is helping, do I think that she should not have access to that? But if you look at the money behind medical marijuana, it is all about legalization. And you know, President Obama just came out and said, marijuana is better than alcohol. Do you guys realize how many dollars and how much crime and how much money we spend on alcohol? Alcohol is the most abused drug in the United States. What do we want another drug out there that's going to be legal? My opinion. Might piss somebody off, but I don't care. So, any other questions?
Are you finding most of these places are rental properties or privately owned?
The question was, are we finding most of them rental properties or privately owned?
Yes, I would say yes, in St. Cloud at least. I mean, the way these dopers work, they'll set up shop at this rental property. Eventually, neighbors will call in. We'll get a tip on it. We'll do a search warrant at their place, and then they're just going to jump to the next place. A lot of times they might, because they might have a criminal history, they're not going to be able to rent. They'll just use their girlfriend to get into these rentals, and then they'll just piggyback on her, and they just hop around from place to place basically. If they own their own property, I think more than likely they're going to be not going to be doing this. They don't want to lose their house. And
we've also storage sheds. I mean, are fairly common where they'll store their dope in their storage shed because they think it keeps the distance from them. So,
What's the tinfoil and coffee filters used for?
what are tinfoil and coffee filters used for? Tinfoil, a lot of times they'll use it for one of 2 things. Either to store their dope in, they'll bindle it up inside there, or they'll use it for smoking. You'll see that the tinfoil is burnt. Coffee filters, back in the day when we had a lot of methamphetamine labs, coffee filters were used to filter the Sudafed out of the cough tablets. So that's what they use it for.
I've seen a lot of that stuff in some sewer lines coming
Really?
out of certain houses, and we reported it to our police department, but it's one of them things. And you look back at the house and all the windows are blankets over everything and blacked out.
Yeah, like I said, the coffee
obvious.
filters were used for making meth back in the day. That was a very good sign for us.
yeah, after I get done making coffee, I normally put it in the garbage.
Yeah.
Not down the sewers.
Anybody else questions?
All right, let's give these guys another round of applause for coming over here.